Hello, and thank you so much for joining me for the second part of a 4-part relationship series. I have listed different topics for the series on the screen. We have already talked about what happens if your spouse steps out of the relationship, has an affair. Today we'll be talking about what happens if you want to go ahead and give them a second chance. So what does second chances look like and how do you go about navigating that? Thirdly, we'll look at what happens if you have decided that you've given it all you can and you're done with the relationship. The last of the 4-part session is talking about codependency in relationships. Actually was requested by someone who follows this channel, so I wanted to make sure I honor your request. At any rate, those are the things that we're going to be talking about. Again, today we'll be discussing giving second chances. So before we get into it, my ultimate goal is to make sure that I'm giving you a great deal of value during our time together. And in return, all that I ask is that you hit the like button and let me know that you're enjoying the content. And if you enjoy it and you think it's helpful, please share it with your friends so that someone else can benefit from the information that I'm providing. So today's topic is, should you give them another chance? Well, when trust is violated, you may wonder if romance or the friendship itself is even worth the heartache. And there's no easy way around it. Betrayal itself, it just simply hurts. And sometimes it hurts down to your core. But here's the thing. If you're going to give someone another chance, there's a few things that you need to be mindful of. The first thing is that I encourage you to accept responsibility for the part that you've played. Even when you're the person that has been injured, you may have played some part in the situation. You know the saying, it takes two to tango. It's not always the other person that may be at fault for the situation that happened. Now, don't get me wrong, I do not in any way support infidelity. What I will say is some of the things that happen to cause infidelity are not necessarily sex. Some of the things that cause infidelity is the fact that either you two have grown apart because you haven't nurtured your relationship, or perhaps you both have just found different interests. The other part of it is that sometimes in relationships, there gets to be a tug and pull, and you get real familiar with your partner, and because you're familiar with them, you know exactly what it takes to push their buttons and hurt them, and you'll do that. You're guilty of it, I'm guilty of it, but you have to be mindful of those things. And there's other things that could have occurred. So just be able to honestly accept responsibility for the role and the part that you played in your relationship not being successful that first time around. The second thing is, try to stop judging. If you're going to give someone a second chance, it's extremely important to play fair. Focus on the full picture instead of only focusing on exactly what they did wrong, and try to keep an open mind and as much as you can, and it's difficult, but as much as you can, avoid dragging the past back up. Once you've addressed the past issues, try and not bring them back up if you have a new argument, because that's not going to be beneficial to the conversation, and it's going to be more damaging to the relationship that you're trying to repair. When you're looking at not dragging up the past, a lot of that comes from forgiveness. And that's a touchy one, and it's hard, honey. Let me tell you, because I've had to do it. It's difficult to forgive, but it's a necessary step if you are going to give that person a second chance, whether it's a second chance in your relationship, or perhaps we're talking about a friendship in your case, and you want to give that friendship a second chance. You're going to have to be able to forgive that person who hurt you. And it's really not even for them. It's more for you. Doesn't mean that you'll forget about what's happened, but what it does mean is that you have personally decided that you're not going to hold on to that baggage, and you're going to move forward. I have a guest. This is the guest. This would be Zoe. This is my sweet baby girl who needs a haircut very badly. I guess she wanted to be a part of the show today. At any rate, so I'm trying to get myself back together again now I've been distracted. We were talking about forgiveness. And here's the thing. There are times where you'll receive an apology. And if you do, that's probably a person that you need to try and move forward with. But there are times where you won't receive an apology. You know it's not that person's nature. They're just not somebody who apologizes. They'll do all kinds of everything else. But the words "I'm sorry" can't come out of their mouth. That can be hard when you can't hear those words. And that's happened to me. And sometimes you have to make the decision that your sanity and your need for peace is way more important than hearing those words or holding on to a past that isn't serving you and it's actually doing you more damage. You see, if you don't forgive someone, you hold on to that anger. You hold on to all that sadness, and it ends up tearing you apart. Maybe you're having difficulty sleeping, maybe you're having difficulty eating. At any rate, you are still struggling with that event that happened that tore you up inside. Meanwhile, the person that mistreated you, oh, they're out living their best life. They ain't thought about you. So do your best to forgive. It's for you, not for the other person. So having said that, the next thing that needs to happen is that you sit and set some real clear boundaries. These are boundaries that you set for yourself, and these are maybe boundaries that you and your partner will set together. It may be as simple as an agreement that both of you come to about what's considered a decent time to come in the house once you've been out with your friends. It may be what's considered acceptable interaction between the opposite sex, what's considered appropriate interaction between somebody that is outside of your relationship. The point is, when there has been some sort of infidelity or trust that's been broken, it's typically someone's needs are not being met. So you need to make sure that you state what you would like to see happen and what you are willing to accept. So that's what I'm talking about, personal boundaries. What you are willing to accept and not accept in the relationship. And get real clear on what you need. If you need honesty, if you need consistency, then you need to make those boundaries very clear with your partner and ask them, is that something that you can honor for me? Because you may find that that person just is a free bird and they just need to be out there and doing their own thing, and they don't have time to be spending X amount of time with you or checking in at a certain hour. Maybe they feel that's too restrictive. But if that's something that you need in order to feel safe in the relationship, then maybe this isn't someone you need to be with. That's what I mean by setting boundaries, and you'll set your own. But those are some examples. And for heaven's sake, make a contingency plan. Now this is, you always got to have a getaway. No, that's not what I mean. But set a contingency plan in place about what you will accept and what you won't do. Your partner needs to be very clear that you've now stated what you need out of the relationship, what you need to see happen differently. And if they don't do those things, then you need to be able to state very clearly what you will do in response to their action. Just let them know, hey, these are the following things that I need in this relationship to feel secure if I'm going to give you a second chance. If I don't see those things, then I'm not going to be able to stay in this relationship. But the thing is once that falls out your mouth, you have got to hold to it. You've got to be willing to walk. The next thing is increase your support network. Make some new friends, or make sure you hang out and reconnect with your old friends while you're trying to patch up this existing relationship or friendship. Your spouse shouldn't be the only person in the world that you're interacting with. They should complement your life, but you should continue to have all the relationships that you built prior to that marriage. And the bottom line is, if you ultimately have given this person a second chance and then have decided that this is not really going to work, the two of you are not on the same page, you're going to need to be able to spend time with your friends to help heal from that relationship. So make sure that you continue to connect with those people, because you don't want to be the one just doing your own thing in your relationship and shut out all your friends, and now here you are back again like, please be my friend, I need you now. And now they don't want to have nothing to do with you because you ain't talked to them in 6-7 months. They're an important piece of this puzzle. Honor your strengths. Think about the challenges that you've already survived, and while it's uncomfortable to have your trust violated, you can still enjoy a happy and productive life. So do your best not to blame yourself for their indiscretions. Remember what I said in the last video, they made a choice to get on it, they made a choice to get in it. Nobody threw them out there. They made a conscious decision. So don't blame yourself for that decision that they ultimately made. And the other piece, baby girl or baby boy, try your best not to be focusing on what other people think about the fact that you've given this person a second chance. The bottom line is, they're not living your life. You're the only one walking around in your shoes, and you're the only one that knows the full detail and the specifics about why you chose to make that decision. And you don't have to tell anybody why you've decided to do what you wanted to do. You're grown. And unless you are the President of the United States or some big, huge celebrity, they really ain't paying all that much attention to you no way, unless you just telling them your whole life. Because the thing is, they got their own mess they trying to work out. So they ain't got time to be focused 100% on you. So that whole thing about, oh, what's everybody think? Everybody's talking about me. That is a narrative that you're playing around in your head. They're really not as focused on you as you think they are. So just focus on your relationship, focus on you, and don't pay attention to all that chatter on the outside. And when it comes to fixing your relationship, the conversation about how to go about that and navigating that experience should be between you and your mate. No one will have anything to talk about if they're not in the midst of that conversation, if you're not sharing every detail and everything he possibly does wrong or does right or anything like that. Those conversations need to be with your spouse. That's why it's called a marriage, because it is a union of two people, not three or four, Sally Mae and Jesse over here on the side. It's the union between two people. Keep your expectations in check. The thing is that although they want to repair the relationship, you want to repair the relationship, they will make mistakes, and so will you. You're only human. The thing is that you want to make sure you pay attention to, is the mistake an isolated event, or is it something that you notice is a pattern of theirs? If it's a pattern, that's a whole different ballgame, and it needs to be addressed, or you need to make a decision that that's it, you're done. But if it's an isolated situation, people make mistakes. So don't be too hard on nobody. Everybody's trying. If you decided you're both going to give this a second chance, understand there will be some bumps along the road. 9 times out of 10 in a relationship, depending on how long you've been together, everybody gets comfortable. You start taking advantage of your spouse. So I would encourage you, if you are on a second chance kind of thing, that you slow down. Slow it all the way down. And what I mean by that is date the person. Take sex out the picture, because when sex is in there, things get muddy. And 9 times out of 10, if we're talking about infidelity, you don't trust that person anyway enough to be sharing your body with them. So step back and just start dating. When I say go on dates, I don't mean go to the movies, because you're not talking. The whole point is to get you to know each other again. Because if you got to the point where there's some infidelity, 9 times out of 10, you guys were pulling slowly apart. And so now you really don't know each other. So take that time and spend that time getting to know each other again by going on dates and doing the things you did when you first met them. And the last thing is, if you're trying and this ain't working, then move on. Just move on. Look, there are some relationships that can be restored and emerge even stronger than they were before, just simply because they've been tested. But on the other hand, if your differences are irreconcilable, it's time to wish the other person the very best and distance yourself completely. Look, I'm not a divorce attorney, nor do I play one on TV. So I'm not even going to get into the particulars of what that would look like. What I will say is, when you move forward from a breakup or a divorce or a separation, it's just not you who's hurting. Even if they seem like they're happy that the thing is over, trust me, that's not the case. If you had any time with that person, they're missing you. They're missing that connection. They're missing like laughter and things, conversations that you've had. You're not the only one that's hurting. Men and women, we play out our hurt differently. Everybody plays out their pain differently. Once you've decided you're going to move on, don't even look at what they got going on in their life. It's not going to be beneficial to your healing. Now stick with me, because next week we're going to be talking about how do you heal from a breakup. So if that works for you, be safe, treat yourself kindly, and I will see you next Thursday.